Hey everyone, how's it going today? Thought I'd try out a problem that someone was having the other day with their stepper, and it's the TMC 5160 version 1.2. I originally did this in version 1.1, so I'll show you what that looks like real quick. So here's the actual board for the stepper, so I'll zoom in so you can see it. And hopefully I'll have to focus it just a little bit right here. So this is version 1.2, and it's a SPI stepper. Now I'll swap in the other one in a second to show you that. Just zoom out for a second. So here's the actual 1.1 version that I originally did the tutorial in. And so you can barely see the 1.1, but it's there. So I'm going to work with the 1.2. And so essentially it's the same setup, it's SPI, so we don't have to move the steppers. And I'm going to set up the power. It's unplugged currently. So let me grab the screwdriver and we'll get this set up. Hopefully we'll have good results here. So I'm going to plug this in to the ground. And then I'm going to do the voltage. And that's for the stepper motors. Then we have to do the board logic, so I have to grab that one. And I'll check on the chat in 2 seconds because I'm sure there's other questions. Okay, that's all set up. So I'm going to close that for safety. Now the chip obviously has to be oriented correctly. So the yellow is actually where the red goes. So I'm going to flip this over, rotate it, make sure again that I know where the enable pin is because I can see the pins in the front. So it's going to be oriented this way. So I'm going to push that down. And I'm not going to put a set of cooling fans on it at the moment, only because we're not going to be running it that long. So I'll plug it in a moment to set it up, but we actually have to load the firmware differently because this is the GTR, so we have to pop it out and we have to place it in one of these, which normally opens kind of easy. There we go. I'm going to pop out the SD card and I'm going to drop it into here, then plug this into my computer. We're all set there. So the next step is to actually go to VS Code, but this is going to take me a second because I got to get it set up here. So give me 2 seconds to clean it up. And I'll check on questions in 2 seconds. I just have to do a quick delete and then extract. The extract, there we go. And let's see what's going on in the chat before I do anything else. Hey Finn, how's it going? Is the sound good on your guys' side? Because I can never tell. That's yet another project I'm working on as we speak. I'd show you what it looks like, but it doesn't look like much. So I'll give you a quick view of what it looks like. Not done, obviously. So let's see if I can show you this. This is so I can hold the actual microphone on the actual rig that I built. So let me pull this up so you can see it. This is the actual holder. It's going to go on the rail, hopefully. then the speaker will go up through here and then sit on top. I don't know how well it's going to support it yet, so I'm still working on this. Hopefully it'll look more interesting when I'm done, but right now it's not very elegant. So back to the VS Code. So inside VS Code, what we need to do to set this up is actually first go to VS Code on my side, and I'm going to show you this on the desktop so it's easier. We're going to browse with Explorer. We're going to do an open folder, go to our downloads folder, our Marlins folder, then our next Marlin folder, then select the folder. Inside here, what we're going to do is we're actually going to set up the firmware so it's correct. So we have to go to source core boards.h, search on the GTR, and that's _V, and that'll bring you to the right one. You're going to copy that, then you're going to close out of boards.h and source and core, go to configuration.h, and you're going to search on motherboard. And here's the default motherboard, so we're going to paste it right here. Then we're going to go up and we're going to change the serial port to -1. And then, as usual, I got to show you how to search for this. The quick way is A4988. It'll bring you to the stepper driver for the x-axis, because that's what we're going to test. So I'm going to remove the comment. Then I'm going to look for the TMC 5160, because they're not versioned, and paste it right there. Then I'm going to go down here, and as you can see, it's 80 steps for the access steps per unit. So I'm going to go over to configuration.h and search on 800. And it's going to take me a couple searches. There we go. And we have to change the resistor sense to 0.075. That's the actual one outlined by Bigtree's documentation. And if we do change this 80 to 160, we do need to change this to 32. And if we do change it to 320, we're going to have to change this to 64, and so on and so forth, all the way up to 256. That's how it works for this, as far as I know. So what we also need to do is set up debug. So I'm going to search on TMC_debug. And that's going to bring us to the first thing that we need to uncomment so we can check it. And I'm going to search on the next one, which is down here. And I'm going to remove the comment as well. Then we have to search on software_spy, and we have to enable it right here. So that should get us working. So let's go back and see what we've got here for platform.io.ini. Our default environment right now is the Mega 2560 chipset, so we're going to have to do a search on GTR_V, and that'll bring us to our default environment for this configuration. So we'll copy that, and we'll bring it all the way back to the Mega 2560 and paste it over. Next, we're going to do a clean, because I do multiple types of builds, and then we're going to click the checkbox. And by clicking the checkbox, we're doing multiple compiles or a build. So I'll check on the chat while that's going on. Thanks. I'm always worried about the sound, so right now I'm trying to figure out a way to boost it up so that it's in between me, the computer, and what you're seeing for the desktop, so that the sound is more clear. So hopefully by today I'll have that done, or at least a prototype. So now that this is complete, we actually have to copy it to our drive. So let me set this up so you can see it. So we're going to go to .pio, then build, then the Bigtree Tech GTR version 1.0. We're going to right click and say reveal in Explorer. And I'm going to make this bigger so you can see. Then I'm going to open that folder. And the firmware is right here. So we're going to right click. We're going to send it to our USB drive. Now we can verify it's there. This is the previous version, which is in all capital letters, ending in cur, which means current. So this is the new one. When it loads, it'll be renamed to this. So I'm going to take this out of the computer and bring it over to the desktop so you can see what I'm doing. So on the desktop, hang on, I gotta change the way I transition here. This is gonna take a second. You're gonna pop out the drive and you're gonna pop it in here. We also have to connect the actual stepper. So we're gonna connect it right here. And then we have the power. Now notice that the power right now is on the actual direct power. The other two slots over would be for USB power, which is right here. But we're using actual direct power, so that's where we need to be. So I'm going to plug in first the USB so that it's out of the way. I just had to find the cable. There it is. Plug that in. Then I'm going to plug in the power. And now the board's actually flashing. So now that that's complete, we're actually going to go over to print run. As soon as I actually open up actual print run. So give me 2 seconds to get that set up here. And let's see if this works this time. There we go. So I have it up. So now what I need to do is inside print run, I need to connect. And we might not have the COM port that we're looking for. So what I'm going to have to do is actually check it. And unfortunately, let's see if OBS is cooperating where I can check real quick. Looks like it's working again. So I'm going to check to see if you can make this viewable for you. There we go. So I'm going to transition this over so you can see how I do this. So inside here, I'm going to go to Device Manager. I click here. And inside Device Manager, we want to go to Ports. So I'm going to click on that, and it's port 14. Because the other one is actually your first COM port, which is a serial port on the back of your computer. So now that we know that, we can select 14. And then what we can do is actually connect to it. Now it's not connecting at the moment. So the reason that is, I'll actually show you. I was rendering something a second ago so that I could print it. So I have to close this because it's grabbing the port. So now that we have that set up, we'll try this again. So I'll connect, and now it says printer is now online. So first thing we're going to do is actually check the steppers by doing M122 and pressing enter. And right now it says that it's okay right here. So we should be good to move it. Let's see what happens. So I'm going to go over and move it 10. And it appears to be moving 10 no problem. So let's move it back 10. And it appears to be working. So right out of the box, it appears to be working fine. It's a little rough, but that's because I haven't tuned it. But tuning it's not really a big deal. It's just lowering the current possibly. So I'll show you a step that we can try to see if the sound will be lower. But let me see if I can pull up a actual dB meter so you can see what's going on. Sorry, it's going to take me a second to find it because I showed it someplace. Apparently I don't know where it is. Awesome. Okay, I guess we'll skip that for today. It's probably in the other room where I was using it. So let's see if we have any questions in the chat. So, do you guys have any questions on setting up stuff? Because I know there's a lot of different things that people have been asking about. Unfortunately, I'm still working on the BL Touch. I should have something ready to go soon. I'm just still making adjustments on the recording station, so obviously there's stuff in the way. But hopefully this will be tall enough when I'm done so that we can actually do this. What voltage? At the moment, I'm doing 12 volts. 24 makes me nervous. Apparently, the last time, a couple weeks ago, I was using one of the GTR boards I have, and I ran 24 volts, and it started sparking. So I've avoided 24 for the moment. But until I can figure out what's going on with that, I'm trying to stay at 12. But it could also be my power supply was not perfect. Or it might be that I was running two different grounds, being the ground that I was using for the actual USB was running to the computer, and the ground for the power supply was running to a different plug. So they're on two different ground planes. That's a possibility. But according to Big Tree Tech, it could be that something fell on the board that I didn't know about and caused some kind of short circuit. They didn't acknowledge any kind of defect, which surprised me, but these things happen, so it could be something I did on my part. So let's see. Haven't got any questions yet other than the voltage. So is there something else you want to see me hook up? Let me bring up the desktop so you can see better. I'm actually going to power it down now. And I'll strip this down, and while I'm doing that, maybe you can formulate what you want for what you want to see next. Otherwise, I can show you how to make grapefruit, which I know is oh so interesting to most people. And I'll put this back in the box. Now, they give you a really cool cooling set of fins for this too. I haven't used it yet in a load situation, but hopefully eventually I get a chance to do that. But actually, let's try something interesting and try a bigger motor, see how it works. I know I have one in here someplace, or it's in the other room. But I have a NEMA 23, I think. Don't know where I put it. Awesome. Hang on a second, let me see if I can grab it. Here it is. I know a lot of people want to see this run, so let's give it a try and see if it works. And let me grab the 1.2. Make sure I'm lining it up correctly. Okay. That's in place. So let me reconnect this real quick. And I'm going to power it up in a moment as soon as I reconnect the power. So I'm probably going to have to extract the USB for a second. let's slide this in and find a screwdriver. And let's do the other side. They give you really nice cables for this. That's the plus side of this board. They're super easy to work with and basically really safe. Okay. Let's try this again. Let me plug that in. Find the right power supply. Connect it. And we'll go back over to Pronterface for a second. Connect to the board. Check to see if it's okay. Looks okay. We'll move it 10. Looks fine there. Let's go back 10. So it looks fine for both motors. So I'll bring that back to the workbench. Unplug this. De-energize the system. And double check questions before I go any further. The NEMA that I'm working with, this one is a NEMA 23. I'm not sure the ounces on it. I could try and look it up. And the other NEMA is possibly 92, but I don't think it is. I think it's smaller. But let's see what I have here. I think I ordered these a long time ago, so I might not be able to find them right away. But let's see what I've got. Maybe I have a list of it here and I just don't know. So it was NEMA 23. This one is, and a second. $180 degrees, 2.8 amps. Not saying what the weight of it is, but it's rather large. I think it's 178.5 ounces, but that's just a guess. Oh, you're referring to the part cooling fans? I'm confused. So, so 12 or 24 volt power. You can use 12. It's default to that. I'll show you in a second. I just have to find the board. Funny thing is, I organized all these, so it's should be quick in theory, but apparently it's not. So here it is. This is the other board that goes with it. You can do 12 volts by default, or you can jump it to 24 over here and bring up the voltage. I did that and apparently had some issues with 24 volts where it caused the board to possibly smoke. So I'm sticking to 12 volts between these two boards and just getting a better power supply for the moment. But you can use either or depending upon the level of risk you want to take. Okay, let's see. Is there any other boards that you want to see today? I may be doing a secondary stream a little bit later today. What is it? Adrian in Australia. We're going to see if we can try and finish the actual reconfiguring of his, what is it? Ender 5. Got his parts in, so we're just trying to schedule a time, and unfortunately the time scheduling is weird because he's a day after us, most of us at least. He's I think his time is way different from mine. I don't know the exact breakout, but it's like 12 hours difference. So scheduling is kind of via IM or Discord, excuse me. And for those that don't know, there's a Discord channel where you can ask me or many other people the same questions, and someone should be able to answer it for you if I'm not available, because there are times where I do sleep. So let's see, is there another board that you want to look at? I've got a bunch of boards. Almost anything you can think of I have on hand. With the exception maybe of a couple of boards. I've got some really obscure ones. But I also have the Rads board that I haven't done much with in a long time, so I was thinking about maybe someday recording more tutorials on that now that Ramps has become, or excuse me, Marlin has become more stable. So I can actually show tutorials on that and not struggle with them. But that's an 8-bit board. It's very old by today's standards. Okay, I got that cleaned up. So where's everybody from? If you don't want to answer, it's okay. It's just for me to get an idea of who I'm talking to and possibly experiment with talking in a foreign language. Obviously, I don't do a great job of it. Well, Texas is easy for me. But obviously I can't talk in a Texas drawl very well, so. With the GTR end stops, you have to be specific about your question. Basically, David's asking, do you have any problems with end stops on your GTR? We can test that real quick, but technically I don't. And the reason is because there's several different nuances to it. So on the GTR board, they have many different end stops. They have jumpers over here that are used for sensorless homing. I think you're supposed to either pop these out and then do your end stops to test them, but we can test them without anything in there and then put something in. Oh, you've got an optical. I've got no on also optical. Oh, so you're having an issue with your optical sensor? We can test that with just USB power, so I'll show you that real quick. Let me find an optical end stop. Here's the one that I currently have. I've marked the wires to designate what I'm working with. So I'll show you real quick. I just have to find a way to hold this down. Let's see if we can do this. Now I have to be careful where I put the clips on here. Okay, let me see if you can see that. Oh, normally open. Are you talking about normally open? I'm missing the question, I guess. I've got no and also optical. So normally open, or are you talking about normally closed? Okay, so normally what I do with an end stop, I don't think about the normally open, normally closed to start with. What I'll do is first I'll plug it in. So I gotta look up what the actual settings are for this one because it's been a while. So I'm gonna go to the Big Tree Tech website in 2 seconds. I just have to get it up so you can see it. And I do already have it, so let's see if I can make it visible. There we go. So let's see if this is the right one, because I gotta read real quick here. Okay, this is the SKR, so I have to go back. I have to go back up to Big Tree Tech. Then I'm going to search in repositories for GTR. Inside here, I'm just going to go directly to the GTR folder. I want to see if there's a picture of the pinouts. Doesn't really say, so I'll go back. I guess I'm going to have to go to the manual. Oh, there are the pins possibly. Okay, so we have the pins right here, and they outline what they are. So E0, E1, and E2 are a set of pins that they're talking about. But we're looking for X minus, Y minus, and Z minus. So it's 3.3 volts, ground, and then the signal pin. So on this, my red is going to be voltage. Then hopefully I've got these colors still right. Ground is going to be the dark one. I've got to clean these up. Let me bring the camera back up here. I don't have the board locked down, so it's sliding around a little. Okay, so we've got those in place. I'll move this so you can see it better. And then we'll power it with USB, so I'm going to move this over for the moment here. Now this may vary when you hook steppers up, so you could always, if you're not using sensorless homing, pop off the jumper for it that's right next to it. But let's see what happens. So I plug this in. I'll double check the chat real quick here. Okay. So now I'm going to go over to Pronterface. And inside Pronterface, I'll reconnect to the board. And I'll do M119. This tells me what the status of the end stops are. And the one that's open is the X minimum because it's the only one that's connected. Now I'm going to place a piece of paper inside here to see what happens. And the light goes out on it. So let's do M119 again. And now it's triggered. So if I remove that, it lights back up. Or it goes out. So there's a light over here. And there's a light over here to say that it's being triggered. So if we want to change the logic to where that's actually triggered instead of open, we could change that in VS Code. So I'll bring this up so I can show you this. So in VS Code, if you've got something that the logic's backwards for, you can go to configuration.h and then you'll search on end stops. And down in here, you might be able to invert the logic. I just got to make sure I'm in the right place, because I always confuse this. So let's see. On config H. Probe. Not going to be there. So let's do a search on end stop again. It's end stop settings, but apparently it's not set up the way it used to be, so let's look around. Used to be a category called the end stops. I don't know why I'm not seeing it. But they have reorganized this file, so it might be a little bit. Take it back to the top. Stop configuration. There we go, end stop settings. Sorry about that. So inside here, I'm going to invert the logic right here. So if you take the false to a true, then it'll make it triggered when you reload the firmware. I don't know if that helps with your question though, because I think you're using a different type of end stop. If you could tell me what type of end stop, I might be able to experiment with it. But without knowing what it is and the data sheet on it, I can't really answer a lot more than that for normally open or normally closed. If it's a what is it? Inductive one. There is a specific one that you can use for the board because I think they put a capacitor on the board now that makes it very specific. But I can't really get any more in-depth unless you post what the actual one is that you purchased. So I hope that helped. I don't know how well it does without seeing the end stop. So, any other questions, requests, tutorials you want to see? If you don't know already, I have a Discord channel, and I'll show you that real quick. Basically, there is a channel over here that I keep for Discord, and if you have a request for a particular video, and it's not too expensive, I can actually look into it and see if I can do it. I'm trying to stay away from lasers and 3D routers at the moment because the noise level for my neighbors might be a little bit too high. So keep that in mind until I actually buy a house. I'm going to have to stay away from some of the stuff that seems even more interesting until I can find a way to control the noise. Yeah, it works, but just keep in mind that it might work differently if I pop off, like, I'll show you real quick. If I pop this right here and take out the end stop jumper, it might work differently. Let's see what happens real quick. Let me just bring it up and see if we can give this a try. I need to reconnect real quick. If I check it, still says opened. If I trigger it with a piece of paper, then try the code again, it still says triggered. So I think that that jumper might be for sensorless homing, but I'm unsure. I'd have to actually really basically call them up or email them to explain what's going on. But I'm not exactly sure why they place jumpers here. So we could check the manual real quick, see if we can find anything. Let's see what we got for the website. So if I go back over here and I go to the actual operating manual, there might be something about end stops or sensorless homing. Yeah, so far I don't see anything that's clear. I wonder if I can search this. Apparently not. We'll have to look into the K-type thermal coupler, but essentially they're saying to connect it a certain way. So the metal shields they might be talking about are actually ferrule connectors. And I advise everyone to use ferrule connectors where they can't use those C-type ones that they provide with it. Makes it slightly safer. Well, doesn't look like they're telling very much about it. We may have to go into the schematic, but that's not going to tell me much at the moment. Okay, there might be something in here about it. Basically, they're telling you here if you use a TMC 2209 and you're using not sensorless homing, cut the pin. In that case, use a TMC 2208. That way you don't have to cut off the pins at all. But I don't see anything about the jumpers. They do talk about something right here though. Limiting switch is not connected. The indicator light is always on. When the normally closed limiting switch is connected, the indicator light is off. And when the limit switch is triggered, the indicator light is on. Logic is backwards, is what they're saying. When normally open limit switch is connected to the indicator light is always on, and when limiting switch is triggered, it's off. Yeah, they're saying the same thing twice, or I'm reading it twice. Anywho. They're talking about powering this with more cables. I personally don't like the way they do this right here. This should be done with ferrule connectors, not with those C-type, because they don't fit in there and you're exposing the actual leads. That's not safe. So I'll show you what a ferrule connector looks like real quick so you know what I'm talking about. Ferrule connector looks like, hang on, I gotta find one. Here we go. These are ferrule connectors. I know they're hard to see on the contrast that I haven't set up, but I'll zoom in so you can see them hopefully. So this is what the ferrule connectors look like. It keeps the wire bundles nice and taut where they should be. They don't slip around. So that's a safer way to do it when you're putting it in some kind of slot connector, like one of the green connectors they're showing in their manual. I'll show you that real quick. So over here, they're showing the C-type ones. So I'll show you what that looks like. This is what they're saying to use. I say don't. Unsafe in that type of connection on the right-hand side. Whoop, hang on, I'll show you. This is the type of connector they're talking about. And this is the one I'm saying to use, and I'll point out where that is. Right over in here. This is not safe because your exposed wire is actually out. So let me check on the chat here because I've just been babbling for a couple minutes. Okay, well, let's see. Do we have any other questions? I know that I got off on a tangent talking about connector types and end stops. Let me move this back to the workbench here. Sorry, I have to neaten up around here because the way I have this set up, I don't like to have a lot of wires sitting in the same place. One of those good practices to keep your area as clean as possible when you're working in it. The weird habit you develop, but parts are expensive. But I'm hoping to hopefully start talking about power supplies in the future. I actually have to learn how to explain it, really. Wiring a power supply I probably won't show you how to do, but I'll talk about the stats on them. Because each country has its own configuration for power. So the US is one standard, the UK is another, and Europe's another. There's probably like 500 other examples. So I'm going to avoid that subject because it can become confusing if I do something in the US and it's not the same in your country. I could damage your equipment, so I don't want to do that. But let me check on the chat, see what's going on in here. Okay, well, for people that don't know, hopefully if Adrian gets back to me today, we might do a stream to see if he's already contacted me. It looks like he has. He's saying next weekend now, so I guess we're going to be doing it next weekend. So is there anything else you want to see today? Everyone seems a little bit quiet today, so I don't know if that's because you're satisfied with what you're seeing or hearing, or you don't know that you can post in a foreign language and I'll figure out what you're talking about. Okay, well then, if everybody's all good for today, just remember that I'm grateful for the people that do Super Chats, and thank you for your taking the time to watch today. You also know about my Discord, and I'll be online on Monday doing a stream at probably 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Unfortunately, work is running late for me these last couple weeks, so when I get here, I might start late if I get here at 5, so I'm going to have to change it to 6. You're welcome, Dave. Everyone take care and be safe, and sorry for the short broadcast today.